Well, good day, everyone. This is Joseph from Adjuvant Protocols for Healing. My book, manual, you could say, describing about 500 different protocols on different conditions, as well as many pearls of wisdom related to nutrition, lifestyle that I've collected over 51 years now. And I hope you all have enjoyed my book or are enjoying it. I get a lot of comments about it, and I'm grateful for that. And these sessions are recorded and they're on my YouTube channel, which you can use this link or just go to youtube.com/Joseph Antel. We have not loaded the most recent ones, but that is coming. So today, obviously, as you know from the title, we're going to look at Alzheimer's syndrome. So, and I did not call it Alzheimer's disease because as nutritionists, we don't treat disease. We have an understanding that our tools that we offer, the healing that we offer through these tools, no matter what modality we are, that we use these tools, and nutrition and lifestyle is an accompaniment to that. It's an adjuvant. It's added on to. It's an adjunct to what we do. And so Alzheimer's syndrome is more than a disease. And we're going to look at this today and see the reasons why. Alzheimer's was first observed or discovered in 1906. That's 117 years ago. And medical science has not really made any great strides, if any, in my opinion. And no blame here, but again, we have to look at it as to what is missing: malnutrition, inflammation, disease. That is the algorithm. And so we're going to look at this today and the reasons why that this condition happens. Now, remember that 1 out of every 9 people over the age of 65 will have Alzheimer's disease. And it is interesting to know that 2/3 of these people are women. Just so you're aware of that. I don't know the reason for that, and that would be a good conversation to research and have a conversation about. But it is interesting. And so you could look at the sequences in this syndrome, being a syndrome means that we're not calling it a disease, even though these references are to the word disease. But there is a cascade of events that takes place that brings this on. This condition, known as Alzheimer's, does not happen in early life. It is down the road of life, on that journey. And as you can see from this article, what is the difference between dementia, let's say, I would add memory loss, the signs of that, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. These terms are often used interchangeably, but they actually have different meanings. Dementia is not a specific disease. It's an umbrella term that describes a wide range of symptoms. These symptoms affect people's ability to perform everyday activities on their own. Common symptoms of dementia include decline in memory, changes in thinking skills, poor judgment and reasoning skills, decreased focus or attention, changes in language, changes in behavior. Now, I would add to this that memory loss is the precursor, which goes before dementia, which goes before Alzheimer's. While dementia is a general term, Alzheimer's disease is a specific brain disease. This is very important for what I want to bring to you today, because most conditions, or what are called diseases, did not start out as a disease. It started out as a syndrome of inflammation and other factors. And we're going to look at this. The final outcome is a brain disease, and I would add here an autoimmune disease, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. It is marked by symptoms of dementia that gradually get worse over time. So he kind of contradicts himself. He said dementia isn't Alzheimer's, but then he says, well, it is dementia and gets worse over time. So it's okay. Alzheimer's disease first affects parts of the brain associated with learning, and I would say memory, hippocampus, if you wanted to look that part of the brain up. So early symptoms often include changes in memory, thinking, and reasoning skills. As the disease progresses, symptoms become more severe and include confusion, changes in behavior, and other changes. So you have this sequence of factors. Now, most older people, of course, after the age, say, of 65, we all forget, the baby boomers, we all forget where we left our keys and other things. And these are things to be watched, but they're not things to be concerned about, because there is a natural aging process. But there is a reason why even memory loss begins to appear in the mid-60s. Now, I'm not going to go into memory loss, which is in my book, and I'm not going to go into dementia today, because I want to focus on Alzheimer's. There's so much information I want to share with you in the next hour and a half. So when we look today at memory loss and dementia, which we're going to use that as the sequence, we're going to focus on the final outcome. Now, for all of these years, they had decided quite a while back that that Alzheimer's had a specific cause. After decades of focusing on the sticky amyloid plaques and tangled tau, that means a number, fibers associated with the disease, brain researchers are searching for other potential causes. Why would they be searching for other potential causes? Because they haven't found the cause. They think they did. But now they've gotten nowhere, pretty much, of impaired memory and thinking. That search is on full display this week at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, San Diego, where sessions are exploring factors including changes in DNA, right? Genes, brain injury, huge. Clogged arteries, which we know, we've talked about for years, you and I, about how arteries and capillaries, when they lose their integrity and get blocked or lose their full capability to provide the necessary circulation that is natural and normal, and inflammation, malnutrition, inflammation, disease. So what are some of the things? I love this article because it narrows it down to really 4 areas that we really want to look at. We really want to look at. So let's take these one at a time, you and I today. Here is the latest research. We know there is a 30, so that's 1 out of 3 people that have potential to have memory loss, dementia, or Alzheimer's. 80% is almost everyone. There is a 30 to 80% reduced risk of dementia in people who exercise. Could it be that it is this simple? I think it does be. And we have known this, we've talked about it, we've lived this life, you and I. And we've taught as healers, we've taught the people we love the most and serve in our community. We know the lead author of a study of an assistant professor in neurology at USSF, my question was, wouldn't it be cool if we could figure out exactly how this is happening? If we could identify some of the mechanisms of exercise for brain health, these are potential therapeutic targets we can bottle. Well, let's look at, we'll go back to the other section, but let's look at exercise. Walking improves your health. A walking regime can help you lose weight, lower blood pressure and cholesterol, and reduce risk of heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, among other benefits. Walking for Health, a special report issued by Harvard Medical School, says that walking can do more to combat disease and other health conditions than pretty much anything else. Wow. For example, walking just 2.5 hours a week. Everyone, I did not say 2.5 hours a day, or just under 22 minutes a day, might reduce your risk of heart disease by an impressive 30%. It improves memory and cognitive capability. Numerous studies show that walking is a brain booster. A study published 2010 journal found a link between walking and a greater amount of gray matter in the brain. For example, research from the University of Virginia in Charlottesville indicated walking lessened the risk for dementia and Alzheimer's disease in elderly men. We must keep moving. Here's one other. Numerous studies show that regular physical activity helps ward off dementia and other neurological problems. We talked the last 2 months on depression, anxiety, bipolar, all of those things. This all ties in with this. Now a study in Journal of Neurology and Neurosurgery and Psychiatry adds more nuance to the topic, showing that any regular leisure time physical activity at any period in an adult's life confers sharper memory and cognitive function later in life. And this ties back in with the second of the 4 major factors. A lot of seeds of poor brain health are shown in childhood and then built on through early adult life and middle age. Because dementia is seen as a problem of old age, this might seem like the time to act. They are absolutely right. The prevention of these brain issues and function start at an early age. People are less active in Western societies and their lifestyle, and it's been that way for, at least 3 decades to 4. But aging is a lifelong process. Yes, the better the brain ages, the better it can stave off or withstand dementia. A lot of seeds of poor brain health include dementia are shown well and truly in childhood. and then built on through the early adult life and middle age, says Rowe. The state of our brain health in late life, when we are controversially worried about dementia, depends on a whole lifespan of lifestyle and activities. So we're going to look at this today. I'll read this one thing again. Subjects who were physically active at every age point. This is what this other doctor was saying. That's why I put both of these in, because you're getting opinions from this group that is not looking at triangles and placking anymore. That's being put by the wayside. Had better cognitive performance, verbal memory, and processing speed at 69. But positive effects were even observed among participants who were physically active as little as once per month. I don't know if I agree with that. That's not enough activity, but it's something. And according to what they're finding, it is something. Sustained cumulative physical activity had the greatest benefits for cognitive function at age 69. Of all the things, being physically active at any time in childhood and to any extent is linked to higher later life cognitive state, but long life maintenance and physical activity was most optimal. And so there is that. How we live, how we encourage the young people, how we live our lives ourselves and have lived. So if we haven't done a good job up to now, don't be concerned. Start now. Here is another one that I found absolutely fascinating. Which single intervention could reduce dementia risk the most? Now, they said exercise, they said quality of life, being cognizant, being mindful of your health throughout your life, preventing hearing loss. Do you know how many of my friends, and including myself, as we age, we begin to not be able to hear well or at all in certain environments? Less intuitive than mental and physical fitness is the impact of hearing loss. Why is that? Why are they saying, well, maybe I haven't read the whole thing, but I'll say here, it's because brain function, our awareness comes through our five senses: seeing, hearing, touching, all of the others. Poor hearing in middle age is thought to be one of the most significant drivers of dementia that people can act on. The mechanisms are still being teased out, but brain scans have linked poor hearing to faster brain shrinkage. We hate shrinkage throughout our lives, right? Everything goes south and shrinks. Well, there's ways to prevent this. Malnutrition, inflammation, disease. Itself a driver of dementia. Hearing loss also drives up social isolation, which compounds the problem. We can't stand the sound of loud children. We lose that capability of interacting and coping and being able to connect with life. And this is all part of this. It's not all of this placking. They're always looking for a drug, something that can fix something. It is how we live. It is how we are in this human life. As people withdraw from social gatherings and conversations, they entail, but there's good news emerging. The marked declines seen in people with hearing impairments are not as dramatic in people who wear hearing aids. And you would say, I am never wearing a hearing aid? Well, you may need to. You got to do what you got to do as you get older, as if the body hasn't been taken care of properly, to stay in the game, suggesting that correcting the problem can help keep dementia at bay. Until I read this the other day and found this, I realized that some of my friends who are not hearing as well, their memory is declining too. I've noticed it. And I never put it together. I never thought, oh, it's their hearing. And then here's the fourth. Prioritize dental hygiene. Now, you and I have spoken about this many times, the gut-brain relationship with dental and mouth and gum problems. Here they're saying it. They have studied this. They're looking at all of these things now. They're looking at how we live our lives well or not well. One of the more speculative ideas on how to reduce dementia, I'm not speculating about it. They can. I can guarantee that it's related. That gut-brain relationship. And if your mouth is not healthy, your gut is not healthy. Comes from research into bugs in the mouth. Bugs in the mouth, bugs in the gut. Bugs throughout the whole digestive system. A recent study prioritized dental hygiene. One of more speculative ideas on how to reduce dementia risk comes from the research into bugs in the mouth. A recent study in the US found that people with gum disease and mouth infections were more likely to develop Alzheimer's. Wow. So you have these, you can go in and read these. I've read a couple of them. They're impressive, what they're finding. The most common cause of dementia, work is now underway to check whether bacteria, which we'll get into this later on. This is the new frontier for Alzheimer's, is viruses and bacteria, such as Prophomonas gingivitis help drive the condition or simply proliferate in people in the early stages of dementia. If bacteria raise the risk, there will be even more reason to properly brush and floss twice a day. Yes, have your teeth cleaned. We'll talk about that. Here are some others with dementia. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease linked to higher dementia risk. Looking at the types of dementia, we found that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is linked to a higher risk of vascular dementia caused by reduced blood flow to the brain, but not for Alzheimer's disease. Well, wait a minute. You're saying that there is a progression of memory loss, dementia, and Alzheimer's. That's the sequence. Now you're saying, oh no. So I put this in, but I don't fully agree with it because it is part of that cascade. People with liver disease also had heart disease or stroke, had much greater risk of developing dementia. Well, wait a minute. You just said that a lot of these things that relate to stroke, high blood pressure, and heart disease end up connecting in with dementia. So, people need to decide what they're actually saying and not saying. But it all ties in. We have an understanding of this. Trans fats. This is a big one. This is a big one. Because trans fats, and I had something on this I wanted to read to you. Man-made trans fats do not behave as natural fats do in the body. Trans fats can lead to serious health complications, including heart disease, cancer, diabetes, low birth rate, obesity, and immune dysfunction. They also have serious consequences on brain health. Trans fats are commonly found in processed foods, fried foods, store-bought salad dressings, pie crusts, muffins, chips. So just think of how people eat related to this. And the reason is, I had an article in one of my other talks, which I couldn't find again, but they said these trans fats literally change 60% of your brain is fat. It actually changes the fat molecules and it turns them into, I think the article said, like cement. They cannot get nutrients in and they cannot flush out toxins. People with higher level of trans fats in their blood may be 50 to 75% more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease or dementia from any cause, according to a new study published Wednesday in the Journal of Neurology. Well, 50 to 75%, that's just about everybody, right? And I want to tie this into nutrition. If you have trans fats in these fat cells, then the nutrients that you need for the brain cells, i.e. fat-soluble vitamins, if you looked up what's the best vitamin for the brain, they're going to say vitamin C and vitamin E. E is a fat-soluble vitamin. Hear this. Our brains rely on natural fats to create and maintain cell membranes and carry fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. Most of the vitamin D, just as a footnote, are not fat-soluble. If they're synthetically made, they're not fat-soluble. All the D that's being used is crap, it's junk. It's not fat-soluble. A, E, and F, and K, and D. But trans fats can cause cellular destruction, wreak havoc on hormone production, adversely affect memory, and they have that highlighted, and increase inflammation in the brain. Inflammation in the brain can inhibit the body's production of omega-3 fatty acid, omega-3 essential to brain function. So all of these things, studies have shown that high levels of trans fat may reduce serotonin production in the brain, leading to depression as well as adversely affecting memory. And here we are. We live in a world of trans fats. Just go into the grocery store. The study demonstrates that there are negative brain cognitive outcomes in addition to known cardiovascular outcomes that are related to a diet that has a high content of trans fats, says neurologist who was not involved in the study. A member of the American Academy Neurology co-leader, over 1,600 Japanese men and women without dementia were followed over a 10-year period. This is a significant study. Watch these people for a decade. A blood test for trans fat levels was done at the start of the study and their diets were analyzed. Researchers then adjusted for factors that could affect the risk of dementia, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and smoking. They did all that and still they found that people with the two highest levels of trans fats were 52 to 74% more likely to develop dementia than those with lowest levels. Do we have to be convinced? I mean, you can read this in study after study. And here is the other big factor with Alzheimer's that some of you may not even know about. There is a type 3 diabetes. Well, we're familiar with type 1, of course, which is very detrimental. It's a lifetime of pain and suffering. And type 2, which is so common in our society now. This type 3 diabetes is a term that has been put forward to describe the hypothesis that Alzheimer's disease, yes, which is a major cause of dementia, what? They got that backwards, is triggered by a type of insulin resistance and insulin-like growth factor dysfunction that occurs specifically in the brain. Wow. And this is why I have said to you all of these drinks with zero sugar, with zero glucose, oh, these are so good. I know you agree with me that they're not good. All of these other sweeteners, stevia, that, oh, we can get away with it. We can get away with it. The body gets away with it, but the brain knows it does not get away with it. And this is why I've said to you, Tupelo honey, if you want a sweetener, it's the least glycemic sweet substance on earth. It has to be Tupelo honey. Diabetics can use it. But this is an issue with how the brain is not handling insulin and not handling glucose well. The link between diabetes and Alzheimer's, according to the Mayo Clinic, there's already an established link between Alzheimer's and type 2 diabetes. It has been suggested that Alzheimer's may be triggered by insulin resistance in your brain. Wait a minute, what happened to insulin resistance in the body? Probably is happening first in the brain. Some people say that Alzheimer's is simply diabetes in your brain. Wow. Some people say that Alzheimer's is simply diabetes in your brain. That's a quote. This claim has some science behind it, but it's a bit of an oversimplification. Over time, untreated diabetes can cause damage to your blood vessels. Well, there's one factor. But when did that start? And where does it start? The damage to too much carbohydrate, too much glucose. And where does glucose go to first? It goes to your muscles. It goes in every cell, but it primarily goes to your muscles and your brain. This is my question to you to think about. Is it actually too much glucose breaking down the blood vessels in the brain first, unbeknownst? And that's what they're finding here, including vessels in your brain. Many people who have type 2 diabetes do not know that they have the condition, which may delay diagnosis and appropriate treatment measures. That's why I've encouraged you all, get blood work done. Get it done once or twice a year. Keep an eye on your A1C. Find out how you're doing. Now, what they're saying and the studies they have done, you know me, I like to use the paleo diet. I like even Atkins. But they are saying that there is no cure, proven way to prevent dementia, which affects 55 million people the world around. Studies have said that following a Mediterranean diet may reduce the risk of developing the condition. So you can look up what an actual Mediterranean diet. People who stuck closely with the Mediterranean diet, rich in seafood, plant-based foods, had up to 23% lower risk of dementia than those who had an adherence to the diet, said the latest study. Research found that sticking closely to a Mediterranean diet has equivalent to a 0.55 reduction risk of developing dementia. So this is the other piece of how we live, is what we put into our bodies. Now, here is a list of medications that we can look at. You can review the notes later on. Lynn put them into the chat box. These are medications people take every day. Medications have been associated with increased risk of dementia include overactive bladder medications, pain medications. Look at this one. All of the SSRIs, And you think, well, we'll just give it to the kids, give it to, over time, starting from a young person, there are other ways to deal with pain. Sometimes you do need to take it, of course. Heartburn medications, we all know about this, and certain anxiety medications. We can't put these chemicals, we can't try to fix, as Dr. Lee said. How did he say it? Got it right here. I just was using it for something else. Tragedies of the human civilization is the presence of chemical therapy over nutrition. It's the substitute of artificial therapy over natural, of poisons over food, in which we are feeding people poisons, trying to correct the reaction to starvation. Brilliant. Dr. Lee, 1929. Yes. So the longer you take them, the higher dose, the quicker the potential of getting into memory loss, dementia, and Alzheimer's. And then they also go into these different drugs for Alzheimer's. FDA has approved medications that fall into two categories: drug that change the disease progression, in people living with early Alzheimer's, and drugs that may temporarily mitigate the symptoms of Alzheimer's dementia. Drugs in this category slower progression by going after the underlying biology of the disease. The aim is to slow the decline in memory and thinking, as well as function in people living with Alzheimer's. Now, I have connections with some medical doctors, internists, and they say these drugs, they give you maybe a year of less decline. Amyloid treatments working by attacking and removing beta amyloid, they already know that it's not working. A protein that accumulates into plaques from the brain, each one works differently, different stages of plaque formation. The most common side effects include amyloid-related imaging abnormalities, headache, and fall. You're falling more, you have more headaches, allergic reactions, and typically temporary swelling in areas of the brain. Oh, really? Okay, I'm going to take this medication and my brain swells. That usually resolves over time. Some people also have small spots of bleeding. Well, wait a minute. I thought that one of the big issues with Alzheimer's is the loss of integrity of the arteries and capillaries in the brain. The drug is creating more of it. Is that what you're saying here? Sounds like it. In or on the surface of the brain with the swelling. Although most people with swelling areas in the brain do not have symptoms. Yes, I can't tell. Some may have symptoms such as headaches, dizziness, nausea, confusion, vision changes. And my friend John Room from Long Island sent this to me. Drug setback, an experimental drug from Eli Lilly failed to prevent memory loss in a study of healthy older people with the high risk of developing clinical Alzheimer's disease in one or more of the first studies aimed at stopping symptoms before they start. All right, so I've given you that. Now let's spend the rest of the time looking at what is the priority here. And this is the protocol in my book. You may have other products that you like for this, but these are the ones that I've found, I've used in helping people, and helping people way before you reach the point of Alzheimer's. And of course, the products, I'm going to focus on these main 4 today, and a couple from the also consider, because they are so significant. including soybean lecithin. I couldn't put them all in the top 4. So, and these are the dosage that I would use. Yes, it is 4 twice a day of neurotrophin. It is. If you've gotten to this point, you can't just give 1 or 2 a day. It's not going to do anything. Not much at all. And what are the lifestyle recommendations? No SSRIs. Use your brain. Play instruments, right? Exercise daily. We already talked about that. And my brain blend, which I'll get into, and using the protomorphogen. So very, very crucial if you're going to use a protocol. Along with that Mediterranean diet, no more, 0 trans fats, sugar. So let's look at this other research related to these products, specifically the two most important, neurotrophin, I should have put and or hypothalamus PMG. Well, let's look at this. Alzheimer's may not be primarily a brain disease. A new theory suggests it's an autoimmune condition. That's why I entitled this Alzheimer's syndrome, because they know so little still after 117 years. Just in July of last year, a key 2006 research paper published in prestigious, which identified a subtype of brain protein called beta amyloid as the cause of Alzheimer's, which was based on the which may have been based on fabricated data to sell a drug. Yes. This guy who wrote this article in Toronto, a new theory on Alzheimer's disease is based on 30 years of research. We no longer think Alzheimer's as primarily a disease of the brain. Rather, we believe that Alzheimer's is principally a disorder of the immune system within the brain. Here is where you get into the protomorphogens. You must distract the immune system from destroying the brain. The immune system is, and this is why teachers, Mark Anderson and others, call it an immune alliance, found in every organ in the body. It's a collection of cells and molecules that work in harmony to repair and prevent foreign invaders. The exact same processes are present in the brain. When there is a head trauma, listen to these, everyone. We've talked about this so many times as leading to migraine headaches, memory loss, some dementia, these football players and other athletes. The brain's immune system kicks into gear to help repair. Well, what is actually happening is, let's read what Lynn Mayer wrote. And this you can print out and give to your clients to explain protomorphogens. Here's really the best writing that explains it that I have seen. An example of how to describe the action of a PMG in layman's terms. The protomorphogen acts as an oral antigen. So what is that? That's in the case of what we're talking about, Alzheimer's, is necrotic brain proteins in the blood. There's the antigen. To combine with and dispose of any antibodies in the blood that are inhibiting the tissue's regeneration and healing. Those antibodies are essentially attacking the very organ that it is in need of recovery. So in other words, what she's saying here, as those necrotic protein cells enter the blood from the brain breaking down, the body sees it as an antigen, and it creates an antibody and gets rid of it in the blood. Then it doesn't stop there. It goes and attacks the host tissue, that antibody for the rest of the body's existence will only attack that one tissue, that one protein. That's its life's work then. So for the rest of the person's life, as long as necrotic brain tissues are leaking into the blood, those antibodies are on call. They're alert and they're taking them out. Clean up the blood, attack the brain. Nutrition is poorly utilized by any tissue under assault by antibodies, resulting in inflammation, and its repair is significantly inhibited. So you say, oh, I'm using vitamin E. I read it on vitamin C. I'm using zinc for my brain. But if the brain is under assault, we have to put this together and we have to get the sequence correct. We have to remove the burden so the brain can receive those nutrients. It does no good to give the nutrients without relieving the burden. We must protect, feed, and restore. Protect is the protomorphogen. Feed is the supplements, vitamins, minerals, proteins, and restore. And maintain that. Restoration means it's reached a point of balance, but we have to maintain that. Taking the inhibition away occurs when the PMG is taken on an empty stomach. Listen, if you're going to use protomorphogens, whether they're the 25 that are single protomorphogens for specific areas of the body, this is neurotrophin we're talking about today, or hypothalamus PMG. If you don't take it on an empty stomach, it's not going to do this. It's not going to work as a decoy, as an antigen that the antibodies will attack instead of attacking your brain. It won't work. It has to be on an empty stomach. It's very significant. When taken on an empty stomach, it is absorbed through the mucous membranes of the alimentary tract. It never, by the way, it never gets into the bloodstream. If anybody tells you that the protomorphogens get into the bloodstream, they're wrong. I don't care who they are. Dr. Lee said they don't enter the bloodstream. I'm sticking with him. Meeting the tissue's antibodies in the bloodstream, that's at that junction. Now, they don't get into the bloodstream, but they meet at that junction in the lymphoid tissue of the alimentary tract, the colon, reducing in the intestinal tract. This inhibitory effect, when taken with food, the PMG instead is digested as a food. When the PMG is taken on an empty stomach, it acts as a decoy to the antibodies in the blood, distracting the body from attacking the organ. Even if you used in your practice, even if you use this one sentence, that would explain pretty much what a protomorphogen does. The organ then is given time to repair. The organ can then absorb nutrition and energy and to detoxify. Now, that's harder for a person that has loaded their life with trans fats. Those fat cells, the 60%, 2/3 of your brain that are fat cells, can't release the toxins. That's a problem. Said another way, this action then buys you time to send in the nutrients of supplements to then nourish the organ so that it can repair. Brilliant, Lynn. Thank you for sharing that with us. So here are the two protomorphogens. And how did Lee say this? Now, all of the things I've just shared with you. Now, think about what Dr. Lee said when he made this product, probably back in the 1940s. I can't, someone could, well, I don't want you to interrupt me, but I can look it up. Here it is. What would you use neurotrophin for? Okay, he lists these in order of importance. That's why my book is based on the same principles. The most important thing, slowness of thought, loss of memory, psychoactive neurotic manifestations, uncontrolled mental activity, nightmares. Oh, I thought AC carbamide, yes, and neurotrophin, epilepsy. Lee did a lot of work with doctors with epilepsy with neurotrophin, daydreaming, inability to concentrate. Then he's got what they talked about with Alzheimer's, history of trauma, concussion, anoxia, a lack of oxygen to the brain. Diabetes, you mean Lee knew that the brain, this issue that they're saying is a primary principle now of Alzheimer's, he knew it back then? Diabetes following brain injury. That's exactly what they said. Was he before his time? Yes. Now, I've also put hypothalamus in here. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, neurotrophin hypothalamus, I mean, why didn't you just use neuroplex? It's not strong enough, not for Alzheimer's. This is a very debilitating disease. You have got to throw high dosages at this for the rest of their lives. That's why, in my opinion, I should have put and, because you really need both. And you'll see why as I go on here. So, and what is the description from the this other publication? Hypothalamus PMG supports hypothalamus function, aids in repair of the gland, and normalizes levels of hormone output. So the hypothalamus has hormones, as we well know, dopamine, thyrotrophin, and somatotrophin. Somatostatin. So we know, we've talked about dopamine in relationship to Parkinson's, to MS, to other neurological conditions. We know that. But the hypothalamus, if it's functioning right, also has those two other hormones, one in which stimulates TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and the other that calms it down. That's how significant the hypothalamus is in relationship. Everyone is downstream with their thyroid. I'm diverging here a bit, but this is important because this all ties in with this condition and how to use these products. You know, oh, my TSH is too low. You need hypothalamus support. Oh, my TSH is too high. You need hypothalamus support. The hypothalamus is what engages the pituitary to make and release the TSH or to inhibit too much TSH. So when you look at the brain itself, you see that the 2/3 of the brain, as I said, is fat. But what about this other third? Well, really, this mechanism is really where Alzheimer's, the breakdown in this part of the brain, the pineal, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, this part of the brain, the hippocampus, this is really where the hippocampus is the memory center. This is really where Alzheimer's is attacking. And it affects everything else, but this is your key, in my opinion, in my clinical findings. And really, the key to this, again, is pineal. Now, you could say, and I didn't put a slide in here, well, if we take melatonin, will it help with Alzheimer's? It actually does. But we have to restore this part of the brain. So where would you find pineal? Neurotrophin, neuroplex. These are the glandular products that have the most. What is the mineral for the pineal gland? zinc. So there is more zinc in this part of the brain than anywhere else in the body, including the eyes, by the way, this optic chasm, than any other part of the body. You could say, well, the male prostate has more. That's debatable, but probably right. And I'll let you read through how significant the pineal is. And when I say pineal, I'm really including this whole area, this other third of the brain. Now, I want to say a word about chiropractic here, because the brain stem right in this area here is significant to how the rest of this 1/3 of the brain, really the brain of the brain, the whole control of the whole body, of what controls our autonomic function and all our whole nervous system. The source is here. And when you have a brain stem injury, when you have brain stem dysfunction, misalignment, that really affects this. And I would love to have done a study on how chiropractic, people that have had chiropractic, how many of them actually have memory loss, dementia. So you can look that up. Now, the reason I emphasize the pineal, we could look that up and just see out of curiosity, any studies have been done, but that would be a cool study to do. They never think about that. Chiropractic does not get the credit that it truly deserves, in my opinion. The pineal, this is why I say this neurotrophin, neuroplex, and this hypothalamus, this part of the brain is so significant. The pineal, this is from an old journal back in 1913. The pineal appears to have a definite and important function of prolonging the development of the human nervous system. Yes, that's why I said that if this is not right, Alzheimer's is going to appear if these glands are not supported properly with the vitamin, with the mineral, and with the like protein. We do not know much about the pineal and its endocrine activity. We are sure that it produces melatonin, which acts on the hypothalamus. So see, there is that correlation. There is that downstream effect. Everybody think, oh, HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. But what is above that? Now, I've spoken in my lecture on the pineal gland, that was years ago now, and its relationship to the adrenals, of course. Yes, but the pineal is the one that produces the melatonin, which acts on the hypothalamus. And more information on melatonin itself. So what are some of these other significant products that I have? We looked at neurotrophin, we looked at hypothalamus, PMG. What about cataplex G, which is now B2, called that, they changed the name. What about soybean lecithin? What about the significance of choline? A study published in the British Journal in January 2012 has conducted that age-related cognitive decline begins much earlier than expected by our mid-40s. Remember, we looked at the 4 primary things, the main issues for Alzheimer's, and we said, really, the pattern gets set early on in age. Here it is again. Here's another study. They didn't even read the other studies I read to you. Even more distressing. This decline can progress at very unpredictable rates. It's going on, yes. Scientists have identified that acetylcholine, that's a neurotransmitter, a key neurotransmitter, is responsible for forming new connections and strengthening the neural pathways in the brain. In other words, it keeps our mind sharp. However, persistently low levels of this key neurotransmitter places you at risk. Without healthy levels of acetylcholine, the brain can physically shrink, at which point the damage can be very difficult to repair. I would say impossible. So, and yet all we know of advanced age or seen in immune to this cognitive decline, these advanced age who seem immune to this cognitive decline, these so-called superagers retain high mental acuity well into their later years, people that have a lot of acetylcholine. Scientists have determined the superagers' minds function with high levels of acetylcholine. So you can read the rest of the article, but that's the significance. Now, without choline, you cannot engage acetylcholine or the enzyme that engages acetylcholine, acetylcholinesterase. That's an enzyme. So why have we not been able to engage? Well, for one thing, choline in the diet is you can't get enough. You have to eat a lot of foods choline driven to get enough. Here's the other reason, everyone. And I know that you know this, but here it is. Organophosphates. So what are organophosphates? Are a group of human-made chemicals that poison insects and mammals. Organophosphates are the most widely used insecticides today in the world. Though a lot of countries ban it. They are used in agriculture, the home, gardens, and veterinary practice. Organophosphates, so you have that, you know what that is. This is your, what is it? Your Roundup, your other things, it's your other sprays. It doesn't have to be Roundup. You know, Roundup's got so many legal violations now, but there are others, many others, organophosphates. Organophosphates are acetylcholinesterase, that enzyme that engages acetylcholine, inhibits with the potential for exposure and toxicity related to their use as pesticide. Well, how can the brain function without acetylcholinesterase? I just read it to you. The ones that had enough of it, had enough acetylcholine, lived longer. They didn't have mental problems. And these chemicals are blocking the absorption, and they're inhibiting the function of acetylcholine. Due to widespread use, organophosphates are one of the most common causes of poisoning in the world from agriculture, accidental, or suicidal exposure. Yes, that's suicidal. You can look it up. I did. All these people that are having trouble with anxiety and depression, have they been around these chemicals? Most of us have. Exposure to organophosphates may cause symptoms as confusion, headaches, impaired memory, and may have neurotoxic effects from repeated exposure. Irreversible. Irreversible? Oh, you mean if I'm exposed? Yeah, that's what this says. Acetylcholinesterase inhibitors used in insecticides or nerve agents in warfare pose significant toxicity. They banned these sprays, these nerve agents. They banned them in war, and they're using them. It's not funny. It's ironic. These agents include chologenic crisis, which includes any combination of the following. They give you all of the symptoms. Bradycardia. And this was a good pearl for me, because I have had certain clients that have low blood pressure. Now you say, well, not too many people have it, but the ones that do, it's very hard. I'm going to add in choline and cholinesterase substances, so that, and see if that helps, because maybe they have been exposed to these chemicals or other things. So when you get into lecithin, and in my book, one of the other products for Alzheimer's is suggested is lecithin, soybean lecithin. Now, remember, there's no protein in that product. There's no hormone influence in that product. We just extract the lecithin from the soybeans. The highest concentration of lecithin is found where? 30% of the brain and 2/3 of the fat in the liver. Lecithin is a fat emulsifier. It is driven to work with fat cells, work within fat cells. So here is my thought. If all these trans fats have such a detrimental effect, if you take lecithin over time, is it possible that they can break down and reduce the impact that these trans fats have? So just a thought. Now, I'm not going to go into acetylcholine and cholinesterase because I just did, but these are other articles that you can read. And and this is from a quote that I just read to you about high functioning people and acetylcholine. And so why is Cataplex G in the top 4 products? Because choline is vitamin B8. Great. Well, let's just take a lot of that. No. Remember the principle of the B vitamins. They must all occur together. Okay. And so if you're going to take a lot of B2, a lot of riboflavin, a lot of niacin, you must take a formulation that has all the other Bs so that the body can complete the circuit to utilize the one that you're giving into the system a lot of, okay? I hope you get that. The body can only complete what is whole, the body can only use what is complete, what is whole. And this is where Cataplex G comes in. Now you could say, well, what about Cataplex B Core? Yes, you could use that too. But I was taught, and I'm passing on to you, that for brain issues, Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss, G is your key product. And interesting that G, one of the components of G, which I'll get to in a second, it has antiviral properties, warts, herpes, and you'll see how that connects in later. Night sweats. I mean, you can just go through all of this, that all of these symptoms. And here it is. Cholinesterase is an enzyme that acts as a catalyst in the hydrolysis of acetylcholine. In other words, it gets it into the system. It provides the off mechanism during chologenic neurotransmission. Okay? So this is why G is the fulfiller of the principle of getting choline and acetylcholine into the brain. It desensitizes cell tissues and ease any mental or neurological stress, facial tics, apprehension, melancholia. So you can see that in the way John Courtney taught me this, is G has significant lipotropic factors. It engages the ability for these vitamins to work with fat cells. Okay, so that's very important. The other of the four is RNA. Now, I'm going to just dip into this a little bit because RNA is so significant to whether the brain cells in Alzheimer's have the accurate messaging or not. And nucleic acid is normally found in all cell cytoplasm. It is part of the protomorphogen complex of every living cell, assuming its role in enzymatic structure in relationship to protein synthesis. Now, just remember, you know how many calls I've had over the years of people say, Joe, I'm eating a lot of protein, I'm not utilizing it well. Red flag, that tells me right there that they are deficient in ribonucleic acid. They don't have enough. They're not getting it. Or they say to me, I have all of these low thyroid symptoms and I cannot, I'm on Nature-Throid, I'm on Armour Thyroid, I'm on the medication for thyroid. That is RNA. RNA helps not only with how proteins break down and are utilized, i.e. synthesis, it also helps with getting thyroxine, helping with that conversion from T4 to T3, and then getting that T3 into the cell. Very significant. So here is I want to take a moment because this is so important about RNA. DNA contains the genes. Now think, as we're going through this, think of your brain cells. DNA contains the genes that determine who you are. How can this organic molecule control your characteristics? DNA contains instructions for all proteins your body makes. Wow, okay. So that's important. Proteins in turn determine the structure and function in your brain. I'm just going to, instead of saying all cells, in your brain. What determines a protein structure? It begins with a sequence of amino acids. We're not going to go deep into that, but we know you need all 22 amino acids to make new cells that make up the protein. Instructions for making proteins with the correct sequence of amino acids are encoded in DNA. Okay, you following me? DNA is found in the chromosome, in the eukaryotic cells. Chromosomes always remain in the nucleus. Chromosomes always remain in the nucleus, but proteins are made at ribosomes in the cytoplasm. How does the instruction from the inner core of the cell get into the cytoplasm to make normal, correct cells? The nucleic acid is RNA, or ribonucleic acid is the small molecule that can squeeze through the pores in the nuclear membrane. It carries the information. It carries the information from DNA in the nucleus to the cytoplasm. Okay. Where is that? Oh, that image didn't come through. Okay. Thought it. For some reason, it didn't come through. All right. Well, let's leave that. So remember that if we're going to work with restoring cellular integrity in the brain, i.e., Alzheimer's, and the precursors to that, which is memory loss and dementia, we must be able to have enough RNA in our system to do its job, to give the body what it needs to provide and bring the accurate information from the inner cellular level, the nucleus of the cell, to the cytoplasm, so that the body can arrange the amino acids into a normal cell. So you may have to listen to this a couple times, but this is important. And there was supposed to be a photo here, but I don't know where it went. So the other that I have in my book relates to some of these herbs. And this is also in my brain blend, which is a combination of gotu kola, ginkgo, and bacopa. So let's just go through these quickly. Running out of time here. So gotu kola is a complex, a dried herb formulation that has gotu kola, ginkgo, and grapeseed, which is good. You need that vitamin C factor in these grape seeds for the integrity of the brain cells. Why is gotu kola so important? Here it is. This is from an old book where this guy went around and studied ancient herbs and what they did, what they were used for. Gotu kola, this famous longevity plant, which grows profusely in Ceylon, in India. The leaves are extensively used by religious orders to develop spiritual power and to prolong the existence of the brain. This is the herb that, in my opinion, my clinical findings, is for that part of the brain, the pineal and that hippocampus area. Let's read a little bit more. If this is eaten daily, it is said that disorders like rheumatism, neuritis, here's your nervous system, nervous breakdown, can be banished entirely from the constitution and would be an important factor in breeding a better race. It is claimed that gotu kola will increase the span of life by 50 years by developing a brain incapable of breaking down for a very long time. So you could say, well, Joe, I don't necessarily believe this guy, but I have found that when people have used either gotu kola complex or my brain blend, they do much better with memory loss. It is my memory vitamin. That's what I call it, my memory formulation. And the other component in either gotu kola complex or my brain blend is ginkgo. And so, and you can read about that, and yeah. And then the bacopa. Bacopa is one of Ayurveda's most powerful herbs to support brain health, memory, and cognitive function. Bacopa has been shown to increase BDNF levels in the blood and is commonly used with children to support mental clarity and focus. It is also used for supporting emotional health, stable moods under stress. So this combination of these three herbs is really, someone with Alzheimer's either needs to be on this blend of the liquid herbs or on this product. Now, the dosing that I have is 2 twice a day. So it's a pretty hefty dose, but that's what you need. And by the way, because one of the factors in Alzheimer's is the breakdown of the collagen. The brain shrinks, at least for that part of the brain that shrinks because it doesn't have enough protein integrity, and it has been damaged by infection or other things. Trauma, infection, too much sugar, breaking down the nutrients getting to that part of the brain. So gotu kola is famous for collagen reconstruction and maintenance. That's what it does. The other condition that I use gotu kola for is for discs. Anywhere where circulation is poor, this combination of ginkgo and gotu kola in particular are very vital. I've helped more people with spinal disc problems with that product and calcifood than any other substance that I've ever used. So the other one that is in my top 4 is this, turmeric. And turmeric has been used in India for over 5,000 years, which is likely why still today, both rural and urban populations have some of the lowest prevalence rates of Alzheimer's disease in the world. A recent study on patients with Alzheimer's disease found that less than a gram of turmeric daily, taken for 3 months, resulted in remarkable improvements. A diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, sadly, has become rite of passage in so-called developed countries. Alzheimer's is considered the most common form of dementia, which is defined as a serious loss of cognitive function in previously unimpaired persons beyond what is expected from normal aging. 2006 study estimated that 26 million people throughout the world suffer from this condition. Well, I just read to you now, it's 55. It's not going down. And that by 2050, the prevalence will quadruple. Well, it already has started, by which 1 in 85 persons worldwide will be affected by the disease. Given the global extent of the problem, interest in safe and effective preventive therapeutic interventions within controversial medical and alternative professions alike are growing. Unfortunately, conventional drug-based approaches amount to declaring chemical war upon the problem, a mistake which we have documented elsewhere. And this is what I mentioned to you earlier, that these medications for Alzheimer's have a lot of very adverse side effects, and which can result in serious neurological harm, as evidenced by the fact that this drug class carries an alarming high risk for seizures, according to the World Health Organization. I didn't say it. Post-marketing surveillance statistics, it's all there. And it also is the spice that prevents fluoride from destroying your brain. Now, you remember what I said. I feel, and I have found, that the key is that inner part of the brain, pineal, hypothalamus, hippocampus, pituitary, that inner part of that 1/3 of the brain that's not in the fatty area, that if that's not functioning, that's when the plaquing that they found, and X-rays have found, or CAT scans, have found that plaquing and that shrinkage. But I feel, and I'm almost sure, that that is a lack of function in that 1/3 of the brain, that pineal area. Now, why am I repeating all of this? Because the fluoride is the chemical that destroys that area of the brain, especially the pineal. Fluoride is found everywhere today, from antibiotics. Yes, everyone, there is fluoride in antibiotics, to drinking water, no-stick pans, toothpaste, making exposure inevitable. All the more reason why research providing this common spice can prevent fluoride damage is promising. Fluoride's neurotoxicity has been the subject of academic debate for decades, and how a matter of increasingly impassioned controversy among general public as well. From conspiracy theories about it being first used in drinking water in Russian and Nazi concentration camps to chemically lobotomize captives, and to its well-known IQ lowering properties. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I don't even want to go there, but this was the idea. This was the original testing that the Nazis did with fluoride. We use it to its ability to enhance. Oh, I didn't. Sorry, but it goes on to say that turmeric helps to prevent fluorides destroying your brain. So here is the turmeric from MediHerb, and great product. I've taken 4 a day since it came out. And the last part here, I'll just take a few minutes. What am I? Oh, wait, I'm almost done. Is this part, and not the least, I probably shouldn't have left this till the end, but if people that if they've gone off, they can review this at a later time. Could Alzheimer's be caused by an infection? Research into the disease has focused on plaques in the brain. I already talked about this, but some scientists think viruses and bacteria play a role. And even if it's not the cause, maybe it's a combination of the triangles, the plaquing, and the viruses and bacteria. And their work is gaining ground. In particular, evidence pointed to herpes simplex virus 1, a pathogen found in 70% of the UK population in particular. Evidence pointed toward herpes virus, the cause of oral herpes, as a predominant suspect. In particular, evidence pointed to herpes, a pathogen. Oh, why does it keep repeating itself? The cause of oral herpes, a prominent suspect. Evidence points toward herpes. Sorry. Oh, this is what I want. 70% of the population study evidence herpes. Oh, these are just studies. My apology. Oh, here it is down here. Studies in the UK, France, Scandinavia suggested that people who have had infected with herpes were more likely to get Alzheimer's. That's a big claim, right? Well, let's read on. When this doctor, Oxford University Institute of Population Aging, who has done more than any other scientist to advance theory of Alzheimer's, this virus, this theory on Alzheimer's, examined postpartum brain samples from patients. She found greater amounts of this virus DNA than in people who had not died of Alzheimer's. Was intrigued because the major hallmarks of Alzheimer's are well known, which still have little idea about what triggers it. So, Others have suggested that various bacteria may have caused capable of irritating neurodegenerative that leads to Alzheimer's. This bacteria which causes lung disease, or is this another bacteria associated with Lyme disease. And even gum infections have been put forward as possible triggers. Now, in the very beginning, I gave you the 4 things they're saying that gum disease is a big part. So here is the gingivitis protocol, which you could add, certainly, but the main thing is that you need to floss and as a preventative, and to use a water pick with this water pick therapy with Dr. Titchener's mouthwash. And now, MediHerb also has a mouthwash if you want to get into an herbal mouthwash. And so this, again, is all in my book. But it's important that everyone get their teeth cleaned and their gums clean up under the gums, a good cleaning every 3 months, quarterly. Once a year, twice a year is not enough. And they're looking at this. You can read through this article that these infections, both viral and bacterial, are crucial. Now, also with this, if you have yeast infection, candida or thrush, you pretty much know that your mouth, that bacterial infection is also, either your mouth is contributing to this or this is contributing to the infection in your mouth. Now, Lynn and I, as I've said, we've said over the months, you really need to, for yourself, your family, your clients, use the symptom survey form, get some blood work done, and the heart sound recorder, and of course the lab testing to find out if you do have a yeast infection. Find out the condition, and especially if you have a chronic mouth infection. This is all preventative. This is to go before memory loss. And by the time you get or Alzheimer's or dementia, before you even get to that, so that you don't get to it, you've got to keep your body healthy using these various tests. So, and you can look in my book, my weed and feed protocol, the paleo diet. And if you do have some kind of vaginal infection, which all ties in with this, if you're getting vaginal yeast infections, more than likely it's in your gut, and more than likely your mouth is being affected. So I'm going to leave it here today, and I trust you enjoyed all of this. It was a lot of information. As always, I like to give you as much as I possibly can. But if we go back to this protocol, if you see someone going down the road of memory loss, you've got to enact and get at least these 4 products: the neurotrophin, the G, RNA, and turmeric. Now, I like to include the herbs, either just the ginkgo forte or the brain blend, or the gotu kola complex that has ginkgo and gotu kola. So, and then of course the lecithin that has phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylserine, which again, they're saying that these are substances that the brain must have. The 30% of the brain that is lecithin must have these sources and the substances that lecithin contains phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylserine. And so with that, I will talk with you again next month from a protocol from my book. And I will be on the phone call with you with my lecture on heart sound recorder in 2 weeks on Tuesday, March 28th. Blessings to you all.